we're always folding forwards. We're always in forward positions. You reach in front of you to pick things up, you push things, we sit, right? All the time. Everybody sits way too much. But because of that, we're always keeping active the front of the body, always kind of passively ignoring the back of the body. And you correct that imbalance, that gets rid of a lot of problems. There is so much information, and also you need so little credibility and fact behind you to be putting information out. And that's what makes things difficult. And I think that's why reputation and referral and things like this matter. But it is why having a coach matters so much, because they've filtered through all of this. Identity is something that I've really been trying to dive into over the past couple years, and I think it's something really profoundly impacting in the sense that it trumps discipline, it trumps habit and routine and all of these things. It's literally the who you are. So the biggest grief of losing a relationship is that you grieve everything that you could have had, because nobody's died.
Right.
Or anything. It's like, so all those options exist. Oh, we could have had all of these things. That's where all the grief is.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. I'm sitting here with Ash Parkhouse.
Yo.
And he is a health coach helping entrepreneurs get in amazing shape and also rewire their patterns in their brain so they can actually apply the hard work that they've been doing in their business and other areas of their life into their health and have their body actually reflect the work that they do in other areas of their life. So, Ash, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
This is going to be an interesting chat. Ash is actually the guy that also programs my workouts as well. So he's been helping me with my lower back issues, and we're going to talk about that as well shortly. So first of all, Ash, why a health coach?
Oh, okay. So we'll go for the abridged version, but we'll dive back a little bit. So I've always kind of had this sort of natural athleticism when I was young, but never really capitalized on it. Arguably even very much rebelled against it. So in school, I was, believe it or not, like mega goth, like always the kid turning up with the sick note for PE, you know, the one that looked exactly like my best friend's handwriting. And yeah, always avoided the physical activity because I really didn't identify with like the jocks or the popular kids that were really into the sport. But then fast forward a couple years, I'm finishing school, I go into finance and I start working a 9 to 5 plus overtime. I'm earning well, but I'm stressed out of my mind, like constantly. And the only outlet I can really find is the gym. So I start going to the gym, I start training a lot. I realize that actually, like I'm actually managing to like work through a lot of this stress kind of cathartically, and I actually really enjoy being physically active. This feels good in my body, it feels good in my mind. So I kind of made the decision that maybe this is going to be a better thing for me to step into. Conveniently timed with having a breakdown at work from being so stressed by not meeting targets and like recession and all of this type of stuff. And then that really played into my strength, because what happened is long story short, I got signed off for stress. While I was signed off, they fired me. That was illegal. I sued them. I used the money to train to be a personal trainer. And I started my health journey properly sort of from there, knowing that actually I would rather choose this lifestyle and choose being able to give people this than spend all my time whatever, behind a desk, stressed, irrelevant of kind of the earnings potential in either direction. So that was the start of it. I chose to walk away from the stressful, high-paying job into the more rewarding career choice that not only was I serving other people in ways that I felt were really meaningful and changing other people's lives, but it meant I got to put myself ahead as a priority as well. And that was the start of my journey. And then basically I was a huge anatomy nerd. When I went through college, I was scoring 100% on like my anatomy and physiology exams. And my tutor was like, maybe you should go do sport therapy as well. You're such an anatomy buff. Why don't you go and learn more about the body? Okay, so I did. And then it's all yeah, like that's the snowball. Is I got obsessed with strength and conditioning and anatomy and physiology and physical therapy, and it just became such a huge passion that I've kind of never looked back. And sort of here we are 13 years into the industry, and I, like most of the time, if you excuse a chunk of the BS in the industry, like I still love it.
Yeah, and that's cool, man, because you know you're different than all the other coaches out there. Because so what Ash does, if you didn't know, so Ash does the manual therapy side of things too, right? So
yeah,
like you take me in your room and you like assess how well my muscles are working, which muscles are turning on, you know, why you got impingement here and stuff like that. And I think that's like a thing that I haven't seen anyone do that. You know, someone who can do that and also know how to program you and get you really strong, improve your flexibility. And so I think that's like a very unique thing that you do.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah. I agree. I think people typically start to steer in one direction or the other. You know, you have a lot of physical therapists, manual workers, physios, osteos, chiros, and that they know how to treat you on the table, but they have no idea how that relates to the movement practice that you actually have, or to your sport, or to your hobbies, or to your things. And unfortunately, those are the times when you get advice like stop doing, which I hate. I hate that diagnosis or that prescription of like, when I do the thing I love, I have pain. Oh, stop doing the thing you love. I don't feel like that's a good long-term solution, you know. Or you get someone that makes you like pull a little band apart or do clamshells or something, and it's not rehabilitation. And then equally on the other side of things, like you might have a lot of trainers that because they don't have the understanding of the body in the ways that they maybe could or should, they don't know how to work with injury or restriction. So instead they work around it. And I think long-term, again, that perpetuates issues. Oh, when I do this, it hurts. All right, we won't do that. We'll do something else. I can't bench without pain. Instead of going, why? We need to look at that. We need to get rid of that problem, and then you can bench. Awesome. They'll go, okay, we won't bench. We'll try this exercise instead. So I think having that hybrid, having that crossover, knowing how to look at the body and find problems, and then having a strategy for resolving those problems, both on the couch and off the couch in the gym, that to me is just like the complete way and the way that it should run.
Yeah, because a lot of coaches, they do that. And I think it's partly obviously lack of knowledge, but also it's like a partly lazy. It's like, I don't want to like go to the root of this client's problem, because if I solve that, then they'll just go away, you know?
Yeah, okay, and now we're talking about a big problem that I see in the industry is I think one of the places where maybe I differ, and I do know other coaches that do this and I have a lot of respect for them, but it's the difference between wanting to create dependence or independence in your clients. And personally, I want to facilitate independence. I don't want any of my clients to need me. I want them to want to work with me, but I don't want them to need to work with me. I want everyone to reach a point where they have complete independence and they don't need me. I very much think having a conveyor belt of referral is far stronger than having like repeat custom because you've created some dependence. And I think a lot of the industry tries to create that dependence. I've even been on, way back when, I've been on trainer courses and marketing courses and things like that, where the shit they teach you is like, make your client need you. If you always do exercises that require a spot or require that you to be interactive with them, if you're always the one stretching them and you're always the one, like if you're giving them a new cue every single time they train so that they think, oh my God, there's so much I don't know, then they're going to stay with you for longer. And I'm like, whoa, I completely disagree. It's the same as when people come in to my physical therapy and they're on my couch and they're like, how often do I need to see you? Is it every week, twice a week? What do we need to do? And I'm like, I'm going to try and fix you in one. If I do that and you go away with that success, you're going to tell everyone. And the second someone goes and you go, what's up? You know, I've got this shoulder thing. They're going to be like, I know the guy. I don't want to create dependence. And also, I don't like working loads. So, it's like I have good work boundaries, and it's like I like to be minimal, and it's like I want to produce fast results that are going to last you forever, and for you to have the independence and the self-accountability. The quicker I can get you there, the higher my reputation goes, the happier you are, and the less responsibility I have with that person now.
And I've seen that play out. Like we do jiu-jitsu together.
Yeah.
By the way, Ash is really good. You're training to be an MMA fighter, right? Have your first fight.
I want to have my first fight.
Yes.
I want to know that I can have a fight and that I can do well.
Yep.
And then I'll be immediately going into early retirement. the punching people in the face is appealing. The being punched in the face isn't. So I want to get that one done quick and then be like, I did it. Step out.
Yeah, and that also helps you with understanding the body more, because you're twisting joints and stuff, and you're noticing things that other people who have clients who train those disciplines won't notice because they don't train.
Yeah, definitely. And this is one of the great things. You know, I'm working with quite a few guys at the moment that are doing BJJ or combat sports, and it's so great to get them into disadvantaged positions, bad positions, get them really strong there, and then they go back into class and they're rolling, and someone thinks, I've got you now, you know, Kimura, like, or stacking them up. And I'm like, nah, we've done our rotations. We've done our Jeffersons, our seated good mornings. Stack them all you want. They're just going to breathe there for a little while, wait for another opportunity, move on. It's like, it's good to see.
Yeah. And that your reputation there is that people get injured and they're like, oh, Ash, straight away. It's like Ash.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, that's the reputation I want. I want to be the kind of the fix it guy, the immediate guy. That's the reputation I want. I don't want, I've been seeing Ash like every week for the past 12 weeks. Things are getting a little bit better. I want that. I saw this guy once. Like, I'm good. Like, you need to see him. That's like definitely a preference. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want that level of reputation, you know?
Yeah, but like you said, like you'd study courses before and they would teach you like dependency. Yeah. And that's prevalent in the industry. It's really hard to find someone that like actually can help you get to the root of the issues that you're having.
Yeah, I really believe that's true. Like, I know I've worked under practitioners because I've done a lot of mentorships and things to get to where I am. But I've worked under practitioners that they have like, they've already planned out someone's rehab journey before they've come in for their first session. How the hell do you know that you need to see somebody twice a week, every week for the next 12 weeks when you haven't seen them? You haven't worked on them. But they're like, no, I know this. It's like all they've actually done is they've punched the numbers and they've gone, this is how much money I want from this person. So this is what I got to prescribe. Yeah. And it's like, nah, it's for me, ethically, I don't think that's on. So yeah.
And that's like chiropractors too. That's why I have a big issue with chiropractors. It's like, you're just going to crack me twice a week for an indefinite amount of time?
Yeah. I mean, hell, like most of them have it on their wall. They have like the model of the chiropractic journey or whatever it is. And it's this like waving little thing with circles on it to represent how often you should have treatments. And they're like, yeah, at first, twice a week, every week for like 3 to 6 months. And then maybe we'll go down to once a week. That's called maintenance. And you're like, okay, but you're charging like $60 to $100 every single time to do 20 minutes of the same thing. It often doesn't feel individualized. And admittedly, there are good practitioners out there in every field, in every career. So you will have outliers. You will have people that will be really good, that will break away from the conventional and will do a really good service. But unfortunately, most people's experiences aren't of that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to talk about, which is why I hired you myself, which is the back pain issues.
Yes.
And this is really fascinating to me because virtually everyone, you were telling me this, like virtually everyone just needs to like work on their posterior chain and do some cardio, you know, and what else? There's another thing you said.
It's mainly those two. To be fair, it's like if most people took like a year to build a really strong, capable posterior chain, like posterior chain hypertrophy work and baseline aerobic conditioning, that would solve so many problems and set people up so much. You know, posterior chain is undertrained and underdeveloped typically, mostly because we don't see it. So it's not a mirror muscle.
Most people don't even know what that is. Like most you said that word and they're like, what the fuck is that? Well, there you go.
So like posterior chain, posterior meaning back, chain is just like connections or links of things. So we're looking at all of the musculature down the back of the body. makes up the posterior chain, and they tend to be the most underdeveloped. Like a lot of famous strength conditioning guys, Westside Barbell, like Louis Simmons and all of this, will talk about having at least a 2-to-1 ratio anterior to posterior chain. So train the back of your body twice as much as you train the front of your body.
That's a cool thing.
Right? That's
cool principle.
That's a nice, easy ratio to go. And then like that will solve a lot of problems in terms of imbalances, because we also live in an anterior driven world. We're always folding forwards. We're always in forward positions. You reach in front of you to pick things up. You push things. We sit, right? All the time. Everybody sits way too much, including myself. And I prescribe the opposite. I still sit way too much. But because of that, we're always always keeping active the front of the body, always kind of passively ignoring the back of the body. And you correct that imbalance, that gets rid of a lot of problems. And then with the conditioning, the aerobic part of it, it's the fact that at least 90% of the time we are in the aerobic system. It's like, are you breathing? Yes. You're using oxygen then. So we can assume that the system that uses oxygen for energy is pretty important, and it's often really undervalued. Building a really good aerobic base is literally going to mean you're going to recover better. In between reps, in between sets, in between exercises, in between training sessions, just throughout your daily movement, it means you're going to sleep better. It means you're going to have more capacity. It literally emphasizes life completely, because and the thing that everybody wants as well, right? You're using oxygen as fuel, but you're burning fat. So it seems like there's pretty good reasons for longevity, aesthetics, and performance to have a good aerobic base to develop your conditioning well. Even things like take jiu-jitsu, sports of jiu-jitsu, right? So the rounds are typically about 5 minutes. Okay, well, ATP and creatine phosphate, your really explosive energy, it's about 10 seconds. Your sort of anaerobic glycolytic energy system using carbohydrates as energy, that's like up to 70 seconds, maybe a little bit more if you're a really well-trained athlete. Everything above that is aerobic. So even jiu-jitsu is aerobic. But people think like sprints, power stuff, all of this, and you think if you bring your baseline up, it solves so many problems. It's also really good for the nervous system. Higher your aerobic base, the safer your body feels. Body feels safe, we're more parasympathetic, we're in rest and digest. We're recovering better, we're healing better, but also we're going to have less pain, better digestion, like be calmer, less reactive to things emotionally and physically. Like, so it's like a win-win-win-win-win. It stacks up so much. It's just really boring to do.
Yeah, and the fitness side of things, like, I mean, man, I didn't work out for 27 years, and I was that guy that would look at yoga and look at all these people in the gym. Like, I'd go to Nirvana. If I came to Bali 5 years ago, and I came to Bali, I'd be like, I've got these fucking assholes in the gym. They're fucking living in the gym. Like, I'd judge people like that. Yeah. And I wouldn't do any of this stuff at all, So it's like the guy listening who's, he's crushing it in business and he's married, he's got some kids, like worked with people like this, and they've let their business life control their whole life and their relationships as well. And so now they haven't got any time for themselves, because everything's outside of themselves, right? It's like, I got time for everything outside of myself, but I ain't got time for myself. Yeah. And then they're like, fuck, I'm like 45 years old and I'm like fattest I've ever been, so unfit. I'm scared of like getting a heart attack in 5-10 years. Like, this is like the reality for a lot of men in the world. And it's sad, man. And it's hard too, at that age, after all that damage has been done, to now go and try and fix it. Yeah, it is. It's very hard. It is. But the thing that I'm really finding with this, especially with this specific set of circumstances, is people overlook easy. They look at how hard getting to the end goal is going to be, and because they can't do perfect, it's this perfection paralysis thing, they don't do anything. And you think how simply you could start to impact and influence your life with very little is crazy, because as long as you add something,
you're going to start seeing progress. You know, a lot of these guys are like, oh, God damn it, like, while I'm running this business and looking after my wife and my kids and paying all my bills and doing all of this stuff, I don't have time to go and train 5 times a week for 90 minutes a session. You're like, whoa. Who told you have to train 5 times a week for 90 minutes a session? Like, why don't you walk for 20 minutes of your break? That's a really fucking big step straight away. Why don't you know? Let's look at micro habits. Let's change one thing. Let's use the sort of the energy and the snowball effect of this. Like, if I'm not working with guys one-to-one, where I can take control of these elements, like when I'm mentoring guys online, a lot of the stuff we'll do is we set up for quick wins. We set up for easy success because it snowballs progress so much. Because if the only thing I give you is, okay, like, how much you walking? And they're like, I'm not. And we go, okay, this first week, 3 20-minute walks. Can you hit that? Yeah, that's too easy. It's not too easy. It's easy. Don't be afraid of easy. Easy is great. And they nail that. Like, you have immediate hype team. Awesome. You just, like, you've smashed it. You smashed your first goal. The likelihood of overachieving is actually relatively high as well. And it sort of sets people up for this success as to how much they can achieve. And even the upper limits, most people that I do train can achieve a lot of what they want to achieve in like 3 45-minute sessions a week. I would argue most people can fit that into their life somewhere. And aside from that, it's like being more physically active and more conscious, more embodied. But it's like putting yourself first a little bit. Like you said, these guys are looking outside of them everywhere. And you ask the question, what hobbies have you got? And they stare at you blankly. Like, I don't remember what that word means. Hobbies. It's like, what do you do for you? They're like, and it's like, that can be profound. Like, just getting someone to do a hobby. Like, the amount of grown men that I have now that are building Lego, doing puzzles, coloring in adult coloring books, because it like gets them back into them and calms them down. And it's like those moments, like that has a big impact. So
on their psyche, right?
Yeah, on their psyche. Yeah, big time. That's usually the hardest transition, but it's the most impactful one, is actually starting to do things for you and putting you first when you've spent so much time working on external, you know, your family, your business, your status. And then you've got to come back and it's like, oh, now I want to work on me, but I don't know where to start. So, you know, like most things that I want to teach, it's like minimum effective dose. Let's find the least that you can do for the greatest results. Always. I don't see the point in doing more than that, because it's like least work, most results. That's the sweet spot. So yeah, that tends to be what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's hard to find that for people if they don't have someone like yourself or like me, like helping them, right? Like, yeah, it's like, all right, there's so many fucking things to do. I read all these books, all these different mentors and stuff. Like, what the fuck do I do? He says do 5 workouts a week. He's saying do 3 workouts a week.
Yeah. This is the thing about the industry. It's about modern day society, industry, business, fitness, whatever. It's like oversaturation of information. It's like, it's so accessible now. There is so much information, and also you need so little credibility and fact behind you to be putting information out. And that's what makes things difficult. And I think that's why reputation and referral and things like this matter, but it is why having a coach matters so much, because they've filtered through all of this. Like, I've been in this, like I've been living this for 13 years. I've done way above my 10,000 hours of coaching, of physical therapy, of research, of mentoring. It's like, I want to give you all the solutions without having to get you to sift through all the information. And I think that's the role of coaches. And I think that's why it's so important and potentially undervalued sometimes as a service.
Absolutely.
It's like, you know, and even us, like, coaches need coaches as well. Like, it's that.
It's a great point you raised there, because people are like, why are you paying? Like, you're a fitness guy. Why are you paying for someone to do your workouts for you? I'm like, he knows things that I don't. Like, You know, that's what it is. I'm paying for, like you said, your 13 years of knowledge. That's what you pay for. That's what people don't realize. It's like, I'm paying for your knowledge to fast track my success.
Yeah.
My results.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and anyone that does coach, even if they don't niche, even if they don't hyper focus on something, they will have areas that they have a lot of strengths in learning, coaching, delivering. And they'll have areas where they either don't have the strengths, or they didn't invest the time, or because you can't expect every single coach to know every single thing in every subject. So it makes sense that, like, if what you need to achieve or what you're looking for is one of your gaps, or even if it's not a gap, but you know there's someone out there that is further ahead in that than you, has refined that information more, like, why wouldn't you invest in that? It's what I do as well. If I find the gap in what I can do, or then I'm going to find someone that's going to fill in that gap for me. You know, like, I'm pretty well developed in my calisthenics journey, but I came to the realization of, like, last year that I was like, oh crap, I've been like, whatever, one arm chins and planches and all of this type of stuff, but my handstand is really shoddy. And I was like, I should probably find someone that's better at teaching handstands than me so that I can get better at my handstand. And I did. I looked at, like, I found a teacher, I learned from them, now my handstands are good. And it's like, when I find gaps in my knowledge, and it doesn't matter if it's in my business, in my personal development, in my fitness, even in my relationships, it's like, if I can find someone that's going to teach me faster and better without me having to sift through hours of information and then guessing, because it is ultimately that. You'll read 10 different things and you'll go, I think that one resonates with me the most. And then you've got to go, oh, am I feeding into my bias? Is that what I want or what I need? And, like, these types of things. And it's like, nah, find someone that's better at it than you, pay them, and, like, absorb that information.
Yeah. And for people listening, that's the most important thing, is to just assess, like, okay, where am I at? Where do I want to go? And who can help me? Rather than, like, how can I do this myself? Like, who can help me? It's like a faster way to get there.
Yeah. Always fast track it. I put a higher value on my time and my freedoms than I do on a lot of these things, which means I'm not going to invest my time and sacrifice my freedoms in attempting to do it all myself. Like, so I will happily invest in someone else to give me the fast track version, to give me the direct information and application. And it's that they have the information and they know how to apply it. So I'm always going to do that, because then I have more of my own free time. I can continue to put myself first. I can operate on my own boundaries. And that's so much more powerful and valuable to me.
Yeah, because, you know, when I was looking at, when we were working together, I was like, fuck, kind of like lost confidence in my ability to ascertain whether or not this weight is the right weight for me. You know, like, how much can how far can I take it? Like, because I got injured before, so I have that quote unquote trauma, right? So I'm like, I don't really have that confidence in what my body can do. So why don't I get Ash to look at it, and then he can know, okay, you can go heavier here, you can back off here. Like, I didn't know that stuff. Yeah. And so that's insanely valuable to me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, you were lacking an objective viewpoint, which is fair, because you were looking at it through your lens, and you have to, because that's, you know, it's your human experience, it's your body that you're in. So, and things like trauma, things like having those impacts and those stresses and those previous experiences will matter and will inhibit you. There's going to be an area where your body is like, well, I've got this wrong before, so I better err on the side of caution. Whereas somebody else coming in that you know, that you trust, being able to identify this and going, you got way more in there, let's go. You got more in there, you got more in there. Like, how about this? How's that feeling? Oh yeah, now that's hard. Great. Like, maybe if you'd done it yourself, it would have taken you like 4 months to build up to that same amount of weight that we did in one session, because I was like, that looks safe, that is strong, you've got this, up we go again. So we get that mental security. And I think this is a big thing with pain and exercise related pain as well, is so much of it is actually about creating safety and security for the body to be able to do those things. You know, if we use you as an example, like coming in initially with back pain, one of the first things you told me was that squats are an exercise that give you back pain. In my brain, one of the first things I'm thinking is, I'm gonna make you squat, right? Not because I want you to be in pain, because I literally want the opposite. I want to break through that limiting belief, that fear, that trauma that your brain is holding on to. So one of the first, you know, like after our like first assessments and stuff, one of the first things we did was like reframe squatting. Squat doesn't mean 200 kilos on the bar, arse to grass, like driving out. So like, oh, well, if we put a bunch of plates there and put just a bar on your back, can you squat to that? Yeah. Ah, without pain? Yeah. So you've squatted without pain? Oh. Can we load it up? Yep. Can we take height away? Yep. Can we? And all of a sudden, we're completely reprogramming that sense of I can't squat without pain. So we're breaking through a limiting belief that usually is going to induce pain, and now it's not. And now we can get strong. And now strength means safety, and safety also reduces pain, because pain, your body thinks pain is advantageous. It does it to protect you. Of course it does. It's trying to keep you from doing things that have risk to you. But it's oversensitive. And we can't rely exclusively on the information that it has gathered. So we have to give it additional feedback. And that's exactly what we did. And that's exactly where that majority of that type of progress is happening. So the second I have someone come in and go, I can't do X because X, I'm like, if I have a way of breaking that belief, progress is going to be great. So that's the first thing that we need to do. It's like, oh, I can't squat without pain. I can't deadlift without this. Or I feel weak when, I feel unstable when. It's like, well, then we're going to try and find ways to introduce those things safely, securely, with my guidance. And we're going to get through those as quickly as possible, because those are going to be the major benchmarks. Whereas you might look at other rehab programs would be like, oh, okay, well, don't squat. And they might even put more fear on it. We know that squatting hurts you. So we're not going to squat. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that scary thing, squats. We'll do a load of other stuff. And it's like, yeah, my opinion is usually, well, let's stop exercises from being scary first and put everything back on the menu in one way, shape or form. And then I feel like you're going to make much better progress through that.
Because like you're removing that mental barrier to doing the thing, and you're regressing it too. So it's not like we're going to go, like you said, arse to grass.
Yeah.
It's like, let's break that belief first, because that's the key, right? Like when you break the belief, now it's like you get so much confidence. Like I got so much confidence from that, because I was like, oh fuck, I can actually squat. Not to the depth I want to, but I can actually do it, and I can load it as well. Yeah. Like I can put a lot of weight on there and still do it. Like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is the thing, and I'm not being funny, but like now, from where you started with your squat to where you're squatting now, you're now way, 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 way past the depth that most gym bros are squatting at. They're walking into a big Globo gym, putting something stupid on the bar and bending their knees 10 degrees and then standing back up and being like, yeah, squat PR. It's like, you know, you're now definitively out squatting all of those people by a landslide. And it's like, it might not be the benchmark that you're aiming for yet.
Yep.
But I have no doubt that you're going to get there. And you're going to get there without pain. And then it's going to feel so hilarious that you ever hesitated about squatting. You'd be like, can't believe I thought I wasn't going to squat. Like once you hit that mark.
Yeah. But that just highlights the need of a coach, because I just had a lack of knowledge, you know, like all the different joints and that are involved in the squat, and like the hip, the role of the hips, like the knowledge of like, okay, we need to lengthen and strengthen the hip flexors, internal rotation, like all this stuff, like posterior chain, glutes, we need to strengthen the glutes.
Yeah.
Like there's so many muscle groups that are involved in fixing lower back and fixing the squat, like opening up adductors.
Yeah, it's huge. The amount of restrictions you can have it's so multifaceted. There's so many things that can be involved in that, and any single one of them could have the potential to be the thing holding you back the most. So it's like, okay, well, we've got to free all of this stuff up. because it's all these defensive mechanisms that we've got to calm down and facilitate, and we've got to get them, like you said, we've got to get them strong at length so they can move through their most available range of motion. And then if that available range of motion isn't great, we've got to continue to increase it so that it gets to a point where, now I can do the thing, which is obviously a lot of the other work that we're doing. And yeah, I think it does take a bit of a technical eye, and like having so many years of anatomy and physiology behind me, and I'm not as obsessed as I used to be. It used to be like, I want to look at every bone, how it moves, and then what joint is feeling what, and then what ligaments, tendons, and muscles are reacting to. I'm not going that deep now, but it definitely is being able to objectively go, these are all the things that should be doing X. Are they doing it right? Are you getting stability and mobility out of all these joints and out of all these muscles? If no, okay, then we need to also break down the movement, and we need to build those components of it. And if we do those two things, we're breaking through the fear and the limited mindset around the big exercise, and then we're building it out of smaller pieces as well. Then we have a fantastic program for rehabilitation, for mobility, for strength, and we can align that with essentially all of the goals that somebody has.
So when someone has physical pain in their body, is that usually a symptom of weakness? A result of weakness?
More often than not, in my personal professional experience, like anecdotally, I would say yes. I would say, I really like to say that you're not tight, you're weak. And what I mean by that is that when you don't have a range of motion in a muscle or in a joint, it's not usually that muscle is tight, because like the length of muscle tissue doesn't change anyway, like permanently. You don't have shorter hamstrings. You have a nervous system that is pumping the brakes on your range of motion faster because it's worried. It feels there's risk in this joint. And the biggest indicator of risk is absence of strength. So typically, if you don't have strength, you'll have risk. If you have risk, you'll have a lack of mobility. And if you try and move to the edges of that mobility, you'll get pain because it's the warning sign. The first warning sign was, I'm going to take movement away from you, so we'll stay in this. And then the second warning sign is, if you try and push on these boundaries, I'm going to give you pain, because I'm helping you, because I want you to stay safe. So usually, yes, if we work back from that, then we go, the initial thing here was a lack of strength. So in a lot of cases, and I would argue the majority, as long as you haven't been like hit by a car or something, we're going to say strength is going to be the thing that is needed the most. We build that strength, 9 times out of 10, we have an improvement in range of motion. That means mobility, or stability was before those anyway, and then reduction in pain. So yeah.
What's your take on passive stretching? Like, because what I've understood since I've come to Bali is, if you increase the strength at the end of your range of motion, then that increases your flexibility.
Yep.
But what about just like stretching? Like, for example, most people identify with yoga as like, if they want to get flexible, I just do yoga,
I think it has a place. I think passive stretching is effective in increasing flexibility. It doesn't necessarily build strength in those ranges, so don't expect to access it whenever you want, and don't expect to access it under load. But it will work. For me, it's the fact that I don't believe it's very time efficient. Right? Most passive stretching is like breathing into the stretching, relaxing to the stretching. The reality is most people will take at least 2 minutes to see some sort of difference. Usually 5. I've seen people take up to 15 minutes to see a difference in a passive stretch. So I don't believe it's particularly time efficient, and it's not hybridized. It's not building strength as well. It's just opening you into range of motion, which means you're still going to have to go build strength there. So in my eyes, I would have rather done both at the same time. The caveat to this is that it is fantastic for the nervous system. It's a really, really, really good way of tuning into the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. So if you have the extra time at the end of a session, it's going to help you wind back down faster. If you have time before you go to bed, It's going to help you wind down and probably sleep better. So it has a place, but I certainly wouldn't put it in as my priority for gaining more range of motion. Because otherwise you still have steps to go to create that safety in the body. You know,
if I had to ask you anti-sitting formula, like what are the like 5 body parts people need to work on to like alleviate their back pain?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Or maybe not 5, but
so sitting, sitting is hip flexion, knee flexion. It's usually rounding of the lumbar spine and of the thoracic, and it's usually a bit of internal rotation and protraction, right? And some forward head posture. So ultimately what we'd really want to do is reverse most of those. But I would argue the biggest factor is that I think a lot of people have heard of trigger point therapy, right? Either self-trigger point therapy with a ball, or everybody loves that, or when you go to a massage therapist and they push into something for a long period of time. So the thought process behind that is if you press into the belly of a muscle or into a trigger point or whatever for long enough, because it's tense against that pressure at first, it eventually has to relax, or for lack of a better word, switch off. So when we sit for long periods of time, we're basically trigger pointing our glutes the entire time and just telling them to switch off, do nothing. I would say majority of the problems come from that. So what I have most people do to like undo the desk is going to be working on being able to pull the shoulders back and down. So we're looking at any sort of mid and mid-lower back exercises. That's going to be your rows, your face pulls, your external rotations, these types of exercises. Things like trap 3 raises where the shoulders are being pulled back and down and then the arms come up overhead. These types of things where we're trying to build stability around between and below the shoulder blades, but then equally getting those glutes to work really hard. So I would say the thing I prescribe probably the most to people is lunges, or any exercise that we can get you to do where you're going to really feel your glutes. Because the more you can connect into your glutes and keep them awake and keep them alive, the better that we're going to do. So if you finish most sessions with some walking lunges, you're probably going to have a sore butt for a couple of days. And we all know that when you get some muscle soreness, you can't help but kind of squeeze those muscles every now and again and check in. Oh, is that still sore? Yeah, it is. What if we're doing that in our glutes? We're like contracting our glutes. Often, we're going to build up more mind-muscle connection. We're going to build more strength, more tone, things like that. So my biggest takeaways would be like hip extension exercises. So exercises that are going to prioritize the glutes. Step-ups and lunges are fantastic for this. And exercises where you are pulling your shoulders back and down. So your pull-aparts and your rows and face pulls are going to be the good exercises for that. If those were the only things you could do, you'd make a lot of progress away from back pain.
Why does having strong glutes help with low back pain?
Because it offers so much stability, is one, stability and power, and obviously that absence of strength is one of the things that we've talked about triggering instability or lack of range of motion or pain. But also because of the positioning of the pelvis and of the lumbar spine, it's typically going to have an impact on that. Most people, and I don't like to put nocebo and fear around these things, but typically the more we're in like an anterior pelvic tilt or the pelvis is being pulled forwards, the more force you're going to be feeling from day-to-day activities in the lumbar spine, which is where most of the back pain is. The glutes are going to be responsible in tilting it the opposite direction and having a better balance between the quadriceps on the front of the body and the glutes on the back of the body. They're going to have that opposing viewpoint, but also because they work harder, the muscles in and around the back are going to work not as hard. So one of the things that I like to talk about with clients, especially on the couch, is that I think of joints as overlapping or opposing. I've lost the word I actually want to use, but those will work for now. Of alternating. That was my word. Okay, so joints in the body tend to alternate between being responsible for mobility or stability. Stability being like minimize movements to a degree, or be in a very singular movement pattern and offer a stable platform, versus mobility being like move in lots of different directions to dissipate movement and force. So we think of, we won't go into the foot, but if we think of the ankle as a mobile joint, then the knee is a stable joint. This is why knees get blown out so easily as well. It's a stable joint. Ligaments have about 3% stretch before they blow. So you get tackled into the knee, it's going. It's a stable joint. It doesn't want to move loads. Flexion, extension, that's kind of it. Hip is a mobile joint, has a lot of capacity for movement. So you want to have mobile hips. You want to have big ranges of movement and control. So muscles that are on around the hip to dissipate forces, which means the lumbar spine can be stable. We hear about neutral spine and things like that all the time, but although the spine can move, lumbar spine's happiest thing is to just be in a position whilst the hips move. Above the lumbar spine, we have the thoracic spine. We want that to be flexible. Scapulars need to be stable. Shoulder joint, very mobile. And it goes off down there and it goes up to the neck. So because of that, we think if you start to diminish strength and mobility in the hip, glutes, hamstrings, psoas, like all of these things are kind of adaptively shortening or turning off while we're sitting, we've now down-regulated the amount of the hip's ability to be a mobile joint. So it's going to look for mobility somewhere else. And some people present in knee pain. Sometimes it's going to go higher up. Most often it's going to go higher up. Now you have a lumbar spine that is trying to act like a mobile joint, which means it's going to take load and forces, but that's not its purpose. So it's not going to do that well. And when it can't do it well, we get that repeated sequence again, right? I'm not strong enough to do what I'm doing. I'm going to take away range of motion. I'm going to give you pain when you move outside of this range of motion I've taken from you. And if it never wanted to move much in the first place, the range of motion you're going to be left with is very little, which means pain is going to be present almost all the time. So that's kind of the cascading effect that happens with the body, or at least that's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, that's very detailed for people. And just
sorry,
so people know it's good. Like, because if someone's listening to this for the first time, they'll be like, "What the fuck's hip flexors?"
Yeah.
Hip flexors is just like basically to the left of your pubic area, right?
Yeah, like muscles on the front of your hip.
Yeah.
Right. So hip flexion is when your leg comes closer to your torso. So it's just the muscles responsible of doing that. Right. You know, if my bicep is here to here, then when I squeeze it, it does this. This is elbow flexion. The same thing on my hip. If my leg was straight, and then to move my leg closer to me would be a hip flexion. So the hip flexors are the muscles that are responsible for doing that. Yeah.
And so, that's cool. So people got actionable things they can work on now. Like at least they have some knowledge of body parts that are involved in, alleviating their back pain. And that's like general advice. Obviously, you'd have to see them to give them a specific plan for them.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot more specificity to go into it. We don't know what muscles are doing the right and the wrong jobs, if they compensate, if they, et cetera, et cetera. But as a general rule of thumb, to put me out of business pretty quickly, if everybody built really strong, well-developed glutes, we'd see 80 to 90% of the back pain probably go away. It's two things that I've never seen in conjunction. I've never had someone on my couch with really strong, developed glutes and back pain. It hasn't happened yet. I've been doing it for 13 years. Maybe there's someone out there, but it hasn't happened yet. So, and most people that have back pain, when we get their glutes to a certain amount of strength, obviously there's personal things as well, mobility, restriction, compensation, but most people, once the glutes hit a certain amount of strength and dominance around the hip, back pain at the very least dissipates a huge chunk.
How can you test for the strength of glutes? Like what's the best test?
I mean, I do manual muscle testing on the couch. That helps. It's difficult because there isn't really truly a glute isolation exercise per se. You could call a few things that perhaps, but I don't believe it really truly exists. And the ones that would be, you can't load enough for it to be a test. But I definitely think your ability to squat, lunge, split squat, step up become the biggest factors, and your ability to feel. So it's a subjective measure, but the ability to feel the glutes whilst doing those things. So like for you, we're looking at getting you to some specific ranges of motion on a few exercises first. And then the second thing is getting you to a point where the main thing that is sore following your workouts is the glutes. And then the third step is usually the main thing you feel while you're doing your workout is the glutes. So it kind of happens in a few different stages. But most people are very desensitized to their whole body anyway. So initially we've just got to create more awareness and like do the exercises that should be glutes, but you're not going to feel in your glutes at first. Even lunges. Most people I get to do walking lunges, I'm like, where'd you feel it? They're like, legs. Right, okay. It's just a disconnect. But then 2 days later, I get a text from them and they're like, oh my God, my butt's so sore. Good. Step 1, complete. We're getting them sore. Step 2, get them to feel it while they're doing it. Now we know that when we're building strength here, that's what we're getting stronger.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy. Yeah, I like that. Because you did that to me. You killed me with lunges. I was like, oh my God. But then the next day, I texted you. I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling it. I got mad DOMs in my glutes.
Yeah.
And that's funny because, I was talking about the entrepreneur who's like 45, hasn't worked out in a few years. And, that person, when they start working out, what they'll tell me is, Aaron, I'm in pain. Like after the first workout.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I'm in so much pain. No, you're not. Like you're not in pain. You're just feeling delayed onset muscle soreness, right? Which they're just not familiar with because everything is pain. Because like you said, they're so desensitized from their body and how it feels because they haven't done it for a while. Yeah. So it's just like, fuck, it hurts.
Yeah, this is a big one, and I think this is a really great first benchmark as well. Is when people can start associating DOMs for DOMs, like that delayed onset muscle soreness is like, oh, I've worked hard. I can feel that muscle. It's that satisfying soreness instead of like the freaking out and being like, I'm in pain. Yeah. Like, help me, So yeah, that's a really nice one. But it's inevitable when people first start training for sure. And that disconnect, and it's like your body waking up again, and you're like, whoa, what has happened? Yeah. But it's also one of the fastest ways to reconnect with your body. So I think it's vital to go through.
Yeah. So you're big on rest and recovery. Yes. And your philosophy is very interesting to me. Like I'm obviously in the industry, but like I saw your stuff and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like you've kind of like gamified resting, which is really cool. And so can you just elaborate on like what your philosophy is with rest and why it's so important?
Yeah. So I feel like rest is a really undervalued portion of your ability to adapt and to recover. And ultimately, like to adapt to something, to improve, it's adequate stimulus. That could be training, that could be whatever it is. Adequate recovery, adaptation. The problem is most people think of recovery as passive. Like when I'm not doing the work, I'm recovering. It's like, that's not quite right. Recovery isn't just not working. It needs to be active things. That same thought process, and this is something that was taught to me by one of my mentors, Luke Lehman, is that if you're driving a car on the highway and your like foot is down on the accelerator and you see a stop sign coming up ahead or a junction or whatever it is, or a car in front of you that's stopped, this is your training, this is your stress, your stimulus. If you just now take your foot off the accelerator and do nothing else, are you confident you're going to stop in time? Probably not. You've got to pump the brake, right? Pumping the brake is the recovery. Actively doing something is recovery. That could be something like yin yoga. It could be meditation. It could be an introspective practice like journaling, mindset practices. It could be stuff that I make most of my guys do, which is get a hobby, And your hobby can't be training. Your hobby can't be reading about training. Hobby can't be, like build some Legos, build a puzzle, color something in, draw something, like dance, like do something that is expressive or creative or that gets you out of your head instead of into your head. And then you can also look at things like other specific recovery models, naps and breath work as well, or yin yoga, if I haven't said that already. Passive, I did. I thought I did. Passive stretching. And then to a certain point, you've got things like ice bath and sauna as well, but you've got to factor in the fact that they are also a stress. So if you've been going stress, and then you're like, I'm going to ice bath and fast and sauna and all of this, and you're like, okay, you've got to factor in that all of those things are also a stress. What they're doing is there's a stimulation that you need to recover from. They're not a thing that makes you recover. So if you stack that on top of everything else, it doesn't mean you're going to recover. Usually you'll push past that edge. But yeah, so it's like actively pursuing something that's going to make you recover. And like with most of my guys, I even use I don't know who to credit. I found it years ago. I wish I could credit the person that came up with it. But I use a worksheet, a resource that is just an Excel sheet essentially that is about recovery points. So this is where I kind of gamify it a little bit, is I say to earn your programming going into the next week, you need to score 100 points of recovery. Otherwise, I'm going to make you do recovery for a week, And it's like things have value. If you slept 7 to 9 hours, you get like 60 points for that. That's great. We're off to a really good start. Most people have crap sleep, so they're not often ticking those points. You get less points for less sleep. You get a couple of points. You might get 10 or 20 points for a nap or for a massage or for some passive stretching or yin yoga. It's like, and we apply like a value system to different recovery modes so that you say over the course of your week, you need to have accumulated 100 recovery points to know that we're going to get all the results from the training. We're training hard enough. We're recovering hard enough. Results are pretty guaranteed. Good nutrition is in there and all these other things. So that's one of the ways I like to play with recovery. But I think it's of the biggest importance. I would rather train hard, infrequently, and lower volume, and know that the rest of my time goes into recovery, and know that I can get the same results of someone training 5 times a week, training less than them. That's kind of my approach.
And that's a big paradigm. That's a big perspective shift for a lot of people because, man, I've had so many guys that are like, dude, I'm only training 3 times a week, and is that enough? I'm like, yeah, it is. And they start doing it, and they're like, oh shit! Like people are complimenting me, like I'm building muscle and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you don't need more than that. We've been brainwashed to think, oh yeah, we need to work out 5 days a week. Like I started training 5 days a week like a few years ago, and my friend was training 6 to 7 days a week, and I was like, man, this is just something in me was like, this is too much. Like an hour every day for 6 days a week. Like for me, that's too much. But I mean, I know like in Nirvana here in Bali, there's a lot of people that do that, but that's not who we're talking about. Like we're talking about like the guy who's got like a wife and kids, job, all this stuff. And so you train pretty hard Monday, let's say, and then rest. And you said to me, do nothing on Tuesday.
I like the do nothing modes. I tend to work my life in this type of pattern as well. I have 3 days a week where I see clients, I do my training, I'll go to jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, I answer emails and calls, and then I have the in-between days where I do nothing, or I get a massage, or I'm a bit of a pamper horse, so I'll get 3 massages, or something like that, and it's like, and I really like living my life on a work-rest schedule, and I feel like I get really intentional work done, whether or not that's my own physical work, my mental work, working on other people and with other people. But I get really intentional work done on my work days, and I really enjoy the hell out of life on my rest days because I'm like, these are my days. These are the days for me. So my entire day is about me. I get to do whatever I want. So I love operating like that. And as close to that as we can navigate people is great. But yeah, I believe in like the kind of work hard and smart, and then rest hard, like have room for play and for enjoyment and for yourself.
What do you say to someone who's like, I don't have the time?
I think that's largely a fallacy. I don't value the thing I would do enough to acknowledge I have the time for it. Is the longer, and it's like, why don't you value it enough? And often it's like self-worth, self-value, limiting beliefs, or it's the too easy thing. Those are the two biggest things I come up against. Either somebody is like, I don't have the time, doesn't mean I don't have the time, usually. There's some very rare cases where that is absolutely true, and it's like, then we got to optimize shit first, right? We got to get your mindset more on board. We got to refine other things in your life and find time, and then we'll do stuff. But usually it's that people aren't associating enough value with the things they would be filling their time with, or assuming that the little time that they have isn't enough, or that it's too easy. Oh, I couldn't no, that sounds way too easy. I want the harder thing. Oh, but I actually don't have time for the harder thing, so I guess I'll do nothing. Nothing is always less than one easy thing, always. So yeah, usually I'd either call them on it and like look into it and go, okay, like let's like, what's your diary like? Where's it? Show me where there is absolutely definitively no time for you to improve your life. Like, we got a big problem if that's the case, right? Or we refine it. Or, oh no, you have lots of time. You have bits of time here and there. What's some little things we could do? Like, there's so many things, usually, you know, especially because there are, like, life is so multifactorial, because it's like, it's how you think and feel and how you react to feelings and thoughts, yours and other people's, right? We can influence those things. It's what you consume, and we mean that from a perspective of what you consume nutritionally, but also news, social media, you know, these types of things. And then how you move. So we can change at least one of those things for 99% of people.
Yeah.
And in doing that, that's going to open more possibilities. So I think it's a fallacy. I think it just takes the digging, which is why it's important to have a coach, because a coach is going to call you out on it and find things for you.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just stay stuck in that story. Like, yeah, I don't have the time. I know so many people that I just don't have the time to work out. It's like, obviously that's a lie, and they know it's a lie.
Yeah, they know it's a lie.
Yeah.
I get the people that they wish, and they don't have time. I wish I could do what you do. I wish I could look like that. I wish I could act like that. I wish I could train like that, but I just don't have the time. Like, just do me a favor. Open your phone. Can you tell me what your screen time is for like social media? Can you tell me what your screen time is for YouTube or TikTok or any of that? Oh, 6 hours a day. That's interesting. You do that for a living, right? No? Okay. You know, how much TV have you watched this week? Like, I'll have those same guys, like, tell me about the latest series of X that they've just binged. Hey, have you seen Vikings Series 2 has come out? Yeah, I finished watching it last week. Came out a week ago, right? Yeah. You've been training this week? Just haven't had the time, man. Just So it's like, okay. Yeah, so again, the solution is have a coach that will call you on it and push you into it and find time for you. Like,
yeah, exactly. So let's switch gears. Let's go into the identity, because that's something that is something that's what people need to do to change and create a lasting change. And I know you're really passionate about that, like changing identity. So how do you see like someone who, for example, is not working out now, or they're working now, but they don't, like myself, right? They don't know the edge of their abilities. So how can they improve their identity? So
identity is something that I've really been trying to dive into over the past couple of years, and I think it's something really profoundly impacting in the sense that it trumps discipline, it trumps habit and routine and all of these things, because it's literally the who you are, and the person that you are. Or when I do like identity shifting with people, and we do like a self-avatar work, and we'll do like, well, who do you want to be? Like, who is Aaron's level up, or higher self or whatever, and we go into this work and like we now go into, well, what does he do on a daily? What are the aspects of his identity? Like, what are his values? What are his beliefs? What are the systems that, like, he doesn't even need to think about doing because that's who he is? And we start to dive into those sorts of things and then try and help somebody navigate into that. The easiest one, or the one that I use the most with like entrepreneurs and things, is if I'm to ask someone, like, give me some of your core values, or tell me about, like, describe yourself positively from a business perspective, like, and they'll use words like dedicated, committed, hardworking, disciplined, all of this. Then we can do little things. We can say, well, how about we use affirmations around that? And we'll just add something to the beginning, which is, my body and my abilities are a reflection of, and now fill that in with those things. So it's like, you believe yourself you've just told me you're a dedicated, committed, successful person. So if we leverage that into your body as well, I am someone that trains this much, or does this much, or always looks this way, or always feels this way, because that has a really profound impact. It's kind of like doing the opposite of limiting belief work. It's something that I realized, for me, there were two reasons why I kind of came into identity. One was I read a book by a woman called Gretchen Rubin, who has the 4 tendency types. And it's all about how you respond to expectations of yourself and of others. The type that I am is called a rebel. It means I don't respond to external or internal expectation. So it doesn't matter. The carrot, the stick doesn't work. You suggest that I do something, I'm not going to do it because you expect me to. I suggest that I should do something, I'm not even listening to me, which is really, really difficult to navigate. The thing that I found out whilst reading this book was the biggest leverage for rebels is identity. If it's a value, if it's just a part, if they identify as who they are, they will do it flawlessly, effortlessly. It doesn't take any thinking, it doesn't take any work. And I was like, this is good. And then I had all these realizations. It's like, since I started training, since I became a trainer, since I became an athletic person, an athlete, I've never fallen out of shape. I've never veered off my diet or off my training so much that I've reversed. And I was like, and when people have suggested that to me, I'm like, well, no, that's just me. And then I started going, there's something to this. It's so prominent as a part of my identity that it's not effort, it's not work. It's not something I have to be setting habits for. It's not something I have to stay disciplined for. This is who I am, so easy. So the work that I do with other people is like finding ways to embody that, to find who do you want to be, and to start navigating the mindset and the embodiment of how to be that person. And that has crazy high results. Like the extra commitment and dedication and hard work that I see coming out of people by taking on these mindset shifts and being like, oh yeah, I am that person, is huge.
And it's because the habits, like, let's say you want to be this type of person and you do the work, each workout, it's proof that you are becoming that type of person.
Yeah, right? This is the great thing, is it's like, it's self-affirming. You're leveraging that you're this person, and then you start behaving like that person. And every time you do a behavior that is of that person, you believe it more. Oh yeah, I am the guy that did that. I am that, and it's like, I literally had someone that we were training yesterday, and he's had this where when he first started coming in, he was doing PT with me because he really was like, there's no way I'm motivating myself to do this. And like admitted yesterday, it was like, man, like I train so differently now. I used to come in and I used to complain, and I'd be like asking how many sets left because I just wanted to get through it and all of this. And it's like he comes in and it's like, it doesn't matter what we're going to do. He's like, because I got this, because this is what I do, because I train hard, because I show up, and he's just like completely embodied and taken on this role and this identity of who he is now as somebody who trains and trains hard. He doesn't even stop to think, to complain or to resist or to check in on the time, or because he knows he's that person. And that was like the biggest change. And now imagine the extra results that we get out of that, because this is who this person is. It's like now we get crazy results because it's not the same type of hard work. There's not the mental resistance there anymore. So we just do.
And do you think that only comes as a result of continually practicing and doing the thing? Or can you just mindset your way there?
I think some people can mindset their way there. I think introspective practice and mindset practice can be very difficult and can feel very lonely because it's a lot of time spent on your own thoughts. And that tends to be where we sabotage ourselves the most as well. So I do believe that you could do it purely from mindset and introspective practice, but I feel actioning those behaviors is quicker. And again, having a coach that's going to give you the things to be doing and what to prioritize is going to help as well. And like, I'm not talking to the person that they are now. I'm talking to this person that they want to be. That's how I'm going to treat them. This is the person. So once we've set that, this is who I'm talking to. This is who I'm pushing. This is who I'm describing. This is who I'm affirming, because I want them to migrate into this person as quickly as possible. And that seems to be where a lot of impact is held.
Yeah. And then they grow to like own their training as well.
Yeah.
You know, like I've done that with you. Like I started out because I was like that. I was that guy. Like I kind of like lost confidence in my training, and then I hired you, and then we were in the gym, and then I was like, all right, I want to like start taking more ownership, and then we switched to like the programming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was huge. That was a really pivotal moment like for you, and that was when I was like, sweet. So now, you know, when you came in, this like pain had knocked your confidence in your abilities in the gym, and it's like, and I know that was a momentary shift. That's not who you are as a trained person, but I know that pain had taken you there. And like that moment where you reclaimed like your confidence and your ability in the gym was awesome. And again, this is where some trainers might be like, oh shit, now he's not PTing with me anymore, I'm down a client or whatever. For me, I'm like yes, like your independence is back, your confidence is back. This is a huge shift. This is something I feel really grateful and fortunate to have been a part of. And it's like, and for you got to own that again, and you got to step back up into that identity. And I think that's also the thing that holds you to it. Like I've seen a couple of times on your story recently where you're like, it's evening, you haven't trained yet. Like there's a part of you that's like, would think about missing it, but you're showing up, you're going in there, you're doing it because you do. Because I'm getting the result, because I'm doing the work, and you didn't find the need to like justify it or convince yourself. You just kind of was still doing it, found yourself there. And it's like, and that's the secret. It's like when it's a part of your identity, where like the amount of work that goes into it is, well, it's the same, but it's perceived a lot less.
And this is an interesting point because like I've noticed that entrepreneurs, they can't really just make that link, right, between they understand this concept when it comes to their business life, but they don't apply it to their health at all. And it's just like they're super smart, but they just can't see that it's the same thing. It's like, it's identity change. That's all it is. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like they've done the work already once, because they didn't like enter into their, like, they didn't come out of uni, or if they didn't do uni in college or whatever, they didn't come out of school or come out of whatever situation they were in, like as the fucking CEO or as but they had to go like, this is where I'm going, this is who I'm going to be, and they had to make the steps to become this person. So they've done this work already, and it's like you said, they just haven't had that moment of realization that like, I just do this again, but for this, and it's like, and I think that also imbues a little bit of confidence as well, because it's like, I know you can do this. Like I've seen the things, like you've seen the things you can achieve. You think like having a healthy body is harder than that or easier than that? It's just different. It's like, you just got to do it. You know?
So I want to talk about masculinity. Because, you know, I've seen your photos. You've posted some of your older photos, and Like that guy is like completely different, like just looks wise from the guy you are now. And I'm just curious about like your evolution, like as a man, and what does that mean to you? Like, what does masculinity mean to you?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. So this is something I've been, I suppose, exploring and playing with a lot more recently. Referencing to, I put up a picture on my social medias of me the week I first landed in Bali 2 years ago compared to me now. And I am physically smaller and more frail looking. I don't have any beard going on. And it's just, when I look at me in those 2 years ago, I'm like, I look like a boy. I don't look like a man. That's how I feel. And like, but I can also feel into like all the energy that I had at that point as well. And I have a lot of gratitude and thanks for the person that I was then, because I definitely wouldn't have hit where I am now. But I think I was very repressed in my expression of myself back then. And this is something I've battled forever. Like I said, I was a goth when I was in my teens. So that was my first like external rebellion expression of this is who I am thing. And then the second I stepped back into I went into banking, all of that went, and it's like I will fit what is socially acceptable. And then I think I just kind of fell back into those trends of like what is socially acceptable and an absence of expression. So the first part for me of masculinity, but I would say on the polarity of femininity, it's the same thing, but is a unapologetic expression of self. I think that's vital in any sense of expression. If you want to be expression in your masculine or your feminine, you need to be unapologetically expressive of yourself. So that was the first thing I had to kind of encounter. Things that people aren't going to associate typically with masculinity, but mine are quite androgynous. Like I get my nails done. It's whatever. For me, stepping into me was like getting my nails done, dressing certain ways, certain jewelry. It was getting way more tattooed than I came to Bali with. It was growing out my beard or my hair or whatever it was. But it was the first thing I had to do is like step into me. Like, who am I? How do I want to express that? And then with the masculine thing, I think it was recognizing something that I'd never fully acknowledged as that before, which I think the biggest strength of the masculine is in holding space, is in providing safety and that space for people. So that was the first thing that I really found and that I really connected with in terms of expression of the masculine. And a lot of it was just kind of breaking down and dissecting things that I'd previously associated with masculine or be a man that I had to completely detach from. So I think I spent a lot of my life misinterpreting misogyny as masculinity and the man-up culture, the boys don't cry, all this type of thing that we're kind of taught to be masculinity, instead of being like, oh no, that's like, those are the shadows of masculinity. This is like the dark side of it. This is the stuff that we don't want to fall into, but that we get dragged into sometimes of masculinity. And then equally, I had to look into what are people teaching and do I agree with the other side of it? So then if you look at a lot of like the yogic, tantric, and like most of the circle communities, it's sometimes, in my opinion, too far on the other side. So it's like, of course we can cry, we're emotional beings, but it became very, not just it's okay to be open and to be vulnerable, but it's like that was the greatest encouragement. Let's move as far away from toxic masculinity as possible. So let's be soft and gentle and passive and all of this. And I was like, that doesn't feel like it either. And then the things that I really started identifying with was things around, I think you need to be able to access both. So I think being a man is being powerful and dangerous and confrontational and aggressive but choosing not to be. You know, the guy that would kill someone for harming his family, but let his kids climb all over him. It's this kind of hardness and softness in one. It's you know, there's a few very famous quotes around it. It's like the better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yep.
Right? It's Jordan Peterson famously does that you should be a monster and then you should learn to control it. It's like a lot of these things, it's the fact that like I believe masculinity, in the dark masculine, it is about being dark and being enticing and being powerful and being, you know, it's that kind of like Batman-esque vibes. But then in the light masculine, it's being that caring provider figure. It's like knowing that you protect and that you hold space and that you hold values. So for me, it's this. It's like having all the abilities to be this dark and dangerous thing, but having the self-restraint and acknowledgement and ability to not act on it when you don't need to, you know, not to be an asshole, and to be providing safety and safe space and open to vulnerability and emotion and things. So to me, that's what it means to be a man. And this is why I didn't identify with either of these cultures. I didn't identify with this man-up culture. But I'm like, you don't have to be a dick all the time just to show, no, I'm manly. But also, if you go completely into your softness, I don't think you get to say you're a pacifist if you can't fight. It's not a choice, right? If I know how to fight and I choose not to fight you, that's a choice. I can exercise pacifism. But if I have no idea how to fight and I wouldn't stand a chance and I go, no, I don't fight. It's like, of course you don't. Like, but that's not choice. That's not. So I think you need both. I do. And this is something where I believe jiu-jitsu has been a really good journey for this as well. A lot of humility, because you have to have softness. You have to relax, but it's also you're physically fighting someone.
Yeah.
And you also have to be powerful. You have to know when to go, but you have to know when to breathe, when to relax, when to, you know, and like most jiu-jitsu black belts that I know are like incredible, soft, passionate, caring fathers and husbands and absolute monsters on the mat. And it's things like that. And I think that those combining characteristics to me is like what a man is, or what masculinity represents.
That's wonderfully articulated. I agree, man. Like, because I felt like that too before I started training. And I was like, wow, man. Like, if someone were to actually, like, I don't know, try and take me down or punch me or something, like, I literally wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like a man because I don't have that knowledge, that confidence in myself.
Yeah.
You know, like, a man should be dangerous, but, you know, just keep it under wraps kind of thing. You know, like if that's one of my favorite films is The Next 3 Days. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Oh, I don't
it's
know.
Russell Crowe. It's such a brilliant film. So basically, he's just a random normal guy, and his wife, she gets framed for killing someone that she didn't kill, and then she gets sentenced to like 20 years. And he's got a family, you know, like kids, and they just come in one day, and then they take her, and then she's 20 years in prison. I think it was 20 years, and then he's like, "Fuck, what am I gonna do?"
Whoa.
And the whole film is about him breaking her out of prison.
Oh, that's
and
epic.
turning like full like Liam Neeson, like.
Yes, that's what everybody wants to be.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be like, and I think that's a fucking great goal, is to like be the humble, soft, nobody would suspect a thing kind of family man and friend that in 3 days would break you out of prison or travel across the world and kill bad guys.
Yeah.
That's the appeal. And I think in maybe not in such a grand way, I think that is what we should sort of strive towards. And I also believe that the more that you can confidently express those aspects of your masculine, the more the feminine can express. Right? So in terms of like relationships and things like that, if you can provide this darkness and provide this safety, then it allows them to provide this softness and this willingness to receive and everything else. And it's polarity, and that's what's so beautiful about it as well.
What do you think of that whole concept of polarity? Like, what do you think of if a masculine man attracts a masculine woman, do you think they can coexist and have a great relationship?
To a degree, yes. I think both parties need to be able to express in their masculine and feminine to some degree. I think you need to have some sort of self-container, that classical yin and yang and inner polarity. But I do also think you need to fit each other's polarity. I think if you both enter into it and you're both very masculine, I think there's going to be conflicting energies there. And I think it's going to show up somewhere. It's either going to show up in the sexual side of the relationship, in the ability to encounter and resolve conflict in the relationship, in something somewhere. I think if you are both too much in one side, I think that's going to create some conflict. And I've seen this a lot recently as well. In sort of mid-December, my partner agreed to take time off, and I agreed to step up as the provider in our relationship. So we've always been not necessarily 50-50. I guess I've always earned a little bit more, so I've paid majority, but she's always paid her way. We've fair share on bills and things. And this was the first time in any relationship, I might argue, that I've been like, I'm stepping up. You don't work. Let's go. I've got this. And that was a very interesting thing because I really had to step up in that way. And what that actually did is that gave her the space to go, oh, I feel like I'm in a really safe space. I feel like I'm provided for and cared for. I'm going to dive deeper into exploring and expressing my feminine. And that's what she went and did. She started connecting more with other women and with herself and doing more embodiment practices and things like this and introspective practices. And then I realized along that journey that I was like, oh, I've got to step up my masculine again because she's going so deep into her feminine now, and she's in this beautiful, expressive, enticing state that it's like, I've got to continue to balance this energy out, because if I stay, like I said, I'm a little on the androgynous, so I find it easy to explore my feminine and my masculine. But if I stay balanced in myself, but now she's very high feminine, together we're out of balance. So I had to keep stepping up, and it's been nice to see this polarity in our roles go up and up and up. Me as the provider, the pursuer, all of this, and her being able to receive and be open and be creative, and it's been a really beautiful sort of development in our relationship.
That's nice. So you have the polarities there, present. Yeah, and I think that you need that, right? Like
I think so. This is probably the subjects that I'm reading the most on at the moment, and for men's work, I'm reading things like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is all about male masculine archetypes and how we have sort of 4 main archetypes, and they have an immature and a mature masculine, and they all have shadows, and it's like finding ways in which our expression comes through in these certain ways and behaviors and what they mean. But I'm also reading, I don't know, this is bad of me, so I can't reference, but I'm reading a book at the moment from a female perspective, and it's about desires of the masculine from a feminine perspective. And she talks a lot about this kind of polarity, and how if you write a list of features, characteristics down on a piece of paper, and then you have to choose, like, you can give the woman of your dreams 5 of these features, I would bet a little bit of money that you're probably not going to pick many of the masculine features on that list. You know, you're maybe going to pick like soft and receiving, or enticing, or gentle, or warm, or loving, or caring. Like, you're probably going to pick more of those types of things. Then, damn, I'm running out of examples now. But then like strong-willed and assertive, and you're probably going to err more on that type of thing. And then it's kind of looking at being able to express masculine features that bring out the feminine as well. So if one of the biggest things that a lot of women want is to be seen fully, it's like, are you taking the time to see them? Like, Are you, describing things about them that you do see? And not just from the typical male brain of like, you've got a great butt, I love your legs, baby. It's like showing things that you really see them. And it's just like dissecting these concepts. And it's this sort of thing. So I realized that polarity is really beautiful. The sort of the more the feminine expresses, the more ability and capacity you have to express the masculine, and vice versa. Like if you want a lot of polarity in your relationship, the more you step up into that masculine, the more you provide that safe space for the feminine, the more that's going to nurture and grow, and that, I think that polarity is very, very enticing to each other.
And I've experienced, like, other people I've seen, when the guy is not stepping up as a man, the woman doesn't feel safe, and then she has to step up and be the more masculine, and then the relationship falls apart because she's like, fuck, I'm being the man, I don't want to like have to decide everything all the time, but he's not stepping up, so fuck, I gotta do it.
This is a big one, and this is something I see, and this is another one where I'm like, where I see the problems in these two sides of the male shift, and especially more like seeing more passive and vulnerable men, and like more, I'm not against it, but more feminist men, or men that identify as feminist, and they're like they'll suggest dinner or something and be like, well, where do you want to go, babe? What do you want to do? What do you want to? And it's like, make some decisions and lead. Like, that's so much more like so many, like, one of the most common and popular and easiest like role play scenarios in relationships is like women being literally like taken out to dinner and having everything chose for them and having like this. It's like that can be such a powerful thing. It's like indecisive men, and like always putting that responsibility and that authority back into the woman is like, I don't think that portrays that masculinity very well. And it's like, it's that, like you said, if you're constantly putting responsibility on the woman, then she's going to step up, and you're going to have out of balance. Maybe you're going to lose some respect or some authority or some, like you said, it doesn't necessarily feel like that person is now able to hold space and lead. And like even in dancing, the male leads, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean that the male and the female are unequal. It's just a very receptive way for that to work, and I think that that's a thing.
For sure, and your word as well. Like, your word is important as well with a woman. Like, if you say shit and you don't do it, then she subconsciously like thinks that you're not a real man.
Yeah,
could be.
I think it could be perceived as that, because your word is like your integrity. And I think that's a really big one. And I think purpose is another one. Like if you're very lost and like, I don't know what I want to do and but yeah, I think your word is very valuable. And I think fortunately, it's one thing that I've always been very funny about. Like even as a kid, like I've never made empty promises. Like because of that, I don't make promises very often. But when I make a promise, I'm like, if you have my word, it means everything. I will follow through on that.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows these things. It shows integrity. It shows self-respect, and all of these types of things. And then those move into more dominant characteristics. And I think, and like I said, I'm not saying that there can't be opportunities where women can lead. I'm not saying that even like dominance and submissiveness is necessarily a sex or a masculinity, femininity thing, but I definitely do think that polarity and that ability to lead and hold space is coming largely in the masculine form.
How did you develop the ability to express yourself freely? Because that's a big thing. Because I used to think that freedom was just about money and time freedom, but actually it's like the freedom to express yourself how you want to.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that. So same. That's how I used to view freedom, and it was only periods of my life that I had those expressions taken away from me. I think it was almost working through those like traumas, if you will, that pushed me into this expression. I've had periods of time where I've painted my nails and gone into work, and one of the first things one of my male colleagues will be doing is making insinuations towards me being gay or being, and like, not that my sexuality holds any reference or bearing on that, but it's like indicating that a non-typical man-up expression of myself is wrong. And I don't really believe that any expression of yourself is wrong. It's an expression of yourself. That's exactly what it is. So being met with those types of things often and then continuing to suppress myself. And then I think I just reached a fuck it moment. And I'll be honest, I think it did come from, I was one of these people that had to have geographical and financial freedoms first. I'd closed down my business in the UK. I'd moved to Bali with my business online. I was earning considerably better than I was earning in the UK very quickly. And I was like, I have geographical, except for COVID, but relative geographical freedoms, financial freedoms, and then I was like, what does this mean for me? What do I actually want in my life? What's my purpose? What do I actually want? And I was like, to be me, like, unapologetically, to express myself, because I was so tired of having interactions with people on a surface level. So tired of shallow friendships, of pointless interactions, of exchanging niceties and any of this. And I was like, you know what? Anybody that sees me, I want them to see me. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start expressing myself, because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to attract the people that I'm going to have genuine connection with, and I'm going to repel the people that I would never have. So there isn't a loss here. There isn't a loss. I don't think anybody is everybody's cup of tea, but it's way harder if you're wearing 5 different masks and trying to conform and going, this is me, and then realizing that, shit, if this friend of mine was to see this part of me, I don't think they'd be my friend anymore. Well, that's not a friend. And it was just this. I wanted more meaningful connection in my life, and I realized that the way to do that was to take off the masks and to be like, just express me if I'm just me. And then it had profound impact again on everything, on the connections that I did have with people, on my business relationships, on everything. It's like, this was better. This was way better. So, and then it actually allowed me to then find out more things about myself, because I'd just been walking around with all these social masks for so many years that I was like, well, I know I like this and I know I like that and I want to express myself like this. But once I'd expressed myself, it allowed me to dive even deeper and go, wait, what traumas am I hiding away? What expressions have I lied about for so long? What parts of myself do I not know about? And like that sort of thing led me to have, like, at age 30, receive my first diagnosis of ADHD and ASD. So to find out that I'm neurodivergent, which only made sense once I looked at every goddamn thing in my childhood of inability to focus, hyperactivity, like not understanding emotional and social cues with people, and then having to develop all of these skills of such extreme masking, even things like believing that I was an introvert, until I got challenged with, what if you're not an introvert? What if you're a neurodivergent extrovert and you just get so exhausted from social interactions because of how many masks you wear and how hard you try to not be you, that you just can't do social interactions. So you think you're an introvert. And I was like, I was pretty triggered by that one. And then once I continued to express myself and take away all these extra masks and I was like, I guess I'm an extrovert. I love being around other people. I'm a show-off by nature as well. I like to do backflips and handstands and tricks and things like that. I do like being center of attention. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think it's great to have eyes on me and to get energy from people. If I'm making a room of people laugh, I feel incredible. And it's like, I spent so many years thinking I was just an introvert. And it was like, no, I just hadn't learned about myself because I wasn't expressing myself. was always putting myself down in a little box and only showing little bits to little people, going, who's going to like this part? Okay, I'll show this person. Who's going to like this part? It's been the most game-changing thing about my life, was just being like, fuck it, here's me. And then people can be like, oh, I don't like that. Or they're like, I like this guy. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, that's such a cool way to explain that. And breaking that down, initially when you did this, you must have had so many fears.
Oh yeah.
Fuck, I'm gonna like actually be who I am.
Yeah. It's really terrifying, which is crazy. How crazy is that concept that one of the scariest things you can do is be you? Right. That should be the base, right? That should be the foundation. It's like, be you and then deal with other things in life. And it's like, and we miss that part somehow because we grow up and we get taught these social expectations, whether or not that's man up, boys don't cry, whether or not that's hold your head up, you should behave like this, don't do that. Like I'm hugely into anime and manga and cartoons and things like that, and I will watch cartoons to the day I die, and it's like, and people being like, oh no, don't tell people that, like they might think you're weird, or they might not like you, or they might like, but I'm like, no, like I have friends and clients who are like so crazy into it, and until I admit that, they haven't been showing everyone that. And like we're talking and I'll make a reference, I'm like, oh, like this, and they're like, what? You too? It's like, yeah, me too. Like, and then we vibe on it, and it's awesome. So yeah, it's crazy to me that we accidentally fall into this thing where showing us fully is like the last thing we feel safe to do. And there, full cycle, it comes back to safety again, right? And I think this is one of the problems we have in modern day society, with so many people having things like anxiety. And I think you're actually someone I've said this to before, whereas like I had a psychotherapist say to me once that anxiety is excitement without safety. And when she said that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. I really feel that. Because it's always like, it's social anxiety. It's like anxiety around expression of yourself. It's like things that you should find really exciting and uplifting. But you're having to hold back. There's something that you don't feel the safety of being able to express, and thus you're going to go into anxiety instead. It's going to be a negative instead of a positive. So yeah, I feel like self-expression is one of the most powerful things.
Yeah, it's like the root of everything, I think. Like, yeah, because like you said, if you want to have meaningful connection, people want to connect with who you are. But if you're presenting a fake version of yourself, then it's hard to connect. And then you feel alone, because you're like, fuck, all these people like me for who I'm not.
Right.
Therefore, I'm alone.
Yeah.
No one knows who the fuck I am, because I'm not showing it to anyone.
Yeah. What a dilemma. And so many people are in this situation in their life now where it's like, that's how they feel. Yeah. They have friends and feel alone. Whoa. Like, what do you do about that? Yeah. And it's like, and now, of course, it is really scary, because what you're worried about is losing all those friends. Oh, if I show myself, who's going to stick around?
I've definitely experienced that before. And I think that's where the anxiety comes in as well. It's not directly correlated to that, but like, yeah, it's like, fuck. Like, I feel like I'm showing myself to everyone, but there's parts of me that I haven't shown. And I'm like, it's like what you said. Like, if you show that part of yourself, maybe these friends. But then it's, okay, if you do that, like in your case, you went through this process. Yeah. You have to accept that some people are just going to not be friends with you.
Yeah.
You know? Be okay with that.
Yeah, and I'm so okay with that. And I actually love that. It's like, because then when you look back, the people that didn't want to see all of you, you're like, I think these are people that cost me a lot of energy when I was spending time with them. And I never really thought about it. And it's like, because I felt like I was on eggshells or I was on ice, I didn't want to slip up. I didn't want to, because I knew there was risk around this. I don't want to feel like that when I'm around people. I don't want I know that I am responsible for my own feelings and emotions, right? I'm a big believer of, you do, I feel, not you make me feel.
That's a big point.
Big point, right? Something that couples that argue a lot need to really, really dissect. But nonetheless, there are definitely people that in the company of, before I'd really started expressing myself, that I definitely would use far more energy going into those interactions, and more energy to mask, more energy out of fear, more everything else. And even if I like this person, it's like I need to like me more than I like anybody else, you know. And once I made that change, so powerful. And now this is kind of like what I also, to a degree, expect. I try not to push expectations on anyone, but this is what I feel about other people as well. Like I want to see you. So again, my role of being a man, I feel like what I want to be doing in my life is stepping up and showing that the space I provide is safe enough that you can express you when you're in my presence.
Yeah.
And these are the interactions I want to have with other men, because I'm going to go, this is me, this is where I'm vulnerable, this is where I'm confident, but these are the weird shit that I like, and this is the relatively normal. I don't think there's loads of normal stuff I like, but like this is the, like, and be like, this is safe and this is acceptable, this is open. If you want to do the same, you're safe to do that in my presence. And then, yeah, those connections are way more meaningful. And then it's like, you know, I just feel like that's what I crave. I crave deeper, more meaningful connection.
Yeah, and that's like what everyone wants ultimately.
Yeah.
You know? And but can't get it if we just putting in these masks in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I think the funny thing is as well is like, it's also disappointing when you don't get to see someone for who they are. We've all met people where we're like, is that actually you?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah,
like, is that actually you? Like, this is a facade. Like, we can feel it. Like, and it's a barrier. So the fact that we do it ourselves is like, I think it's also the easiest way to get other people to do it. If like commit to making that choice, and again, it shows other people, oh, this is okay. Yeah, it's okay.
It's like that deepest fear quote. I'm not sure if you heard it from Marianne Williamson. It's like, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is we're powerful beyond measure. And then it's a big quote, but ultimately it says, our presence automatically liberates others. So it's like if we go first, and we just, like you said, like with the anime stuff, you make a reference and then you give them permission to express their love for anime also.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, immediately. And it's like, and it works so well, especially on those things where it's a little bit off the beaten route, or a little bit different to what status quo is. And it's like, and these are the times that I've had the most beautiful responses on like my social media as well. It's like, I had a breakup, not with my primary partner. Disclaimer, I'm non-monogamous, and me and my partner will typically date someone together, bring someone else into our relationship. We've done this on several occasions through our relationship together. And we had a relationship end last year in September that I was really cut up about. I was like really, really hurt. It was a really difficult situation. The relationship had unfortunately reached a point that it kind of couldn't continue. I believe we all felt like that, but that doesn't make finishing a relationship any easier, right? It always makes it hard. There's grief, there's loss. The biggest grief of losing a relationship is that you grieve everything that you could have had, because nobody's died or anything. It's like, so all those options exist. Oh, we could have had all of these things. That's where all the grief is. And I reached out to my social media community. I showed up. I described myself in the time as emotionally constipated. I was like, I've reached this point where I'm backed up, guys. Like, and I know what I need is like a good cry or a good release. I need to be able to be vulnerable, and I can't find it. My body is going, I'm not safe enough, whatever. And I was like, I asked for movie recommendations, and I asked for like go-to tips, and I was inundated with messages from men being vulnerable with me. And it was incredible. It was beautiful. And all I did was show up and be vulnerable and go, look, it's okay to do this. It's okay to be safe here. I will also say that 80% of the men that sent me vulnerable messages finished it with a joke to protect themselves, which is such a man thing, right? Like a little bit of vulnerability, throw some humor in there just in case. Yeah. We good? Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. But like that was really, really beautiful. And it was like, oh, it's this. I go first. The amount of people that follow is huge, you know? And then I even ended up helping some of these guys work through some stuff. And that was cathartic, and that helped me. And I got good movie recommendations, and I cried like a baby like 2 days later, and then I felt incredible. But I had a similar thing with I put a post up about BDSM, and I was comparing how you would potentially do a scene, which is like a BDSM specific interaction with somebody. And I compared it to how you would maybe structure a training routine, right? Warm-ups, cool-downs, pre-care, aftercare, like all the good stuff that happens, but the fact that like recovery is important for the nervous system. And I kind of phrased it like this. And again, I had a load of people reach out to me to be like, oh my God, like, thanks for sharing this part of you and for making a nice kind of connection. It was like people feeling seen and then feeling open to talk to me about their experiences and their things. And it's like, so I think that's a huge thing. I think if you can get comfortable with self-expression and transparency, and you put that out into the world, I think it really motivates other people to be like, oh, it's okay to self-express. It's okay to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to be whatever it is that I want to be. And it's that leading from the front, and it's like that giving that permission to people. Permission is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah. And you don't need anyone's permission, but it does help you to see, oh, Ash is doing that, so yeah, why not?
You can give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Like, it's this as well, but yeah, you don't need it, but it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Like seeing somebody go through something or do something, talk openly about things, that's the stuff that opens that platform. And it's always the way. And I think this is very much a thing in the collective human consciousness as well. You tend to see it around limiting beliefs as well. It's like years will go by where nobody beats a particular world record, and the second it's beat, 10 other people are like, oh, this is possible, and they beat it.
Yep.
And it's like, so we really perpetuate each other and accelerate each other and like support each other. So if we can make all of that come from a positive place, as opposed to like fighting and pushing everybody down and whatever else, like the potential individually, but also as a collective, is huge.
Yeah, and that applies to the training too, right? Like the movements you do, like one-arm chin. Like when I first saw one-arm chin, I was like, I can't do it. But actually, when I saw a muscle up, I was like, that's fucking impossible. Like I don't know if I can ever do that. And I attempted to do it once, and I was like, but then I hired a coach, and I figured it out because I got a coach, right? But like, there's so many things like that in life where you just look at it and you're like, how the fuck do they do that?
Yeah.
But then you can do it because there's so many people that have done it. So that proves that you can do it. It's
like looking at those things and not isolating yourself as like, well, I'm one of the people that can't do it. It's like, no, this is possible. Like, and look, like time and like repetition has shown that it is possible for like everyone that's trying it, essentially, or many of the people that's trying it. And it's like, so let's try, because so much more is possible than you initially think.
Yeah.
Like,
and then sometimes it's like, for example, like right now we're doing a handstand conditioning.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm just going to do the work. And then I trust that you're going to show me the path. Like this is the path to doing like ultimately like handstand, holding it for a long time. And then from there, then optional to progress to handstand push-ups, Exactly. And it's just like doing the work and committing to that and trusting in, like, for example, in a coaching relationship, like trusting in your coach's ability to lead you down this path.
Yes.
And that's how you get there, right? Yeah,
absolutely. That's how you get there, and that's what I've had to do with give or take everything I've learned. And it's the progress, it's the path for everybody that joins it. And it's such a beautiful and rewarding journey. And like, but you're right, it's like being able to put your trust in someone else as well, or in a coach or someone that's going to guide you, mentor you, whatever, gives you even more security, which allows you to show up, put in the work. And like, ultimately, that's what gets you there. I get gratitude and thank yous all the time from my clients, of course, but it's like, I'm kind of just the container. I provide you with the information and maybe the motivation, but it's like, you're always the one to be putting in the work. And it's like, so celebrate yourself, like big time, because every time that you hit a benchmark, every time that you tick off a new goal or anything else. It's like, you did that. Like, legitimately, you did that.
Yep.
Yes, you can say we're a team. Like, I provided some contribution to it, but like, you did that. It doesn't work. I can't just set goals. And you're like, I'll wait a couple of weeks and then I'll tick that one off. It's like, no, you have to do the work for a couple of weeks and then it gets ticked off. So it's like, so no matter what, like, the empowerment always comes back to the person doing the work. So it's just, leveraging things like trust and expertise is definitely the faster way to do it.
You touched on something earlier about the fact that you felt like you needed the good cry, like you were emotionally constipated. How important do you think it is for men to cry?
I think it's as important as it is for anyone. I think expression of your emotions is crazy important. I think it's really important for the central nervous system, for health from that sense, for things like your blood pressure and your heart rate and HRV and everything else. I think it's really good for getting things out of your head instead of burying them, because they're going to come up somewhere otherwise. They will. I think it's just like the level of emotion that you find you're producing is one tangible. So without going into too much detail, if you are healthy, you've got good nervous system regulation, you've got good hormone levels, testosterone, adrenals, etc., cortisol, everything else, then you're still going to get emotional, but not as much as if all those things are off. So I do believe that it's very important for men to feel into the emotions that they have and to be able to express those. I think that's really important. If that is crying, then I think cry, because I think how knowing those emotions are there and not being able to express them feels is so much worse and so perpetuating. And I think if you do genuinely feel constipated emotionally or unable to express your emotions, I think finding outlets for that is really important. Or finding someone with the tools to assist that, be that a psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever. Or even if you let it out in other ways, like cathartism in sense of certain types of training, breath work can be fantastic, meditation and things like this. If you're somewhere where it's legal, using psychedelics or whatever else to deal with traumas can be fantastic. Like I said, I'm only advocating that if it's legal wherever you are. But I think it's profoundly important. It's just, if you need to cry every single day, we probably need to look at your hormones or your nervous system. But if it's within a normal range of emotion, I think it's very valid. I think it's very important.
What do you absolutely, just touch on that. Like emotions, regulating emotions is, there's some guys online and they think that you should just like go, like you're saying, like the hustle. And they perceive like all the things you just stated, like breath work, all this stuff. They perceive that as the people who do that as emotionally wounded. I was reading some stuff yesterday. And
Interesting.
I was like, wow, these guys, they're like all those guys at, like, Tony Robbins. Yeah. They're like all those guys at Tony Robbins seminars are fucking broken people. And I used to kind of agree with that. Like, even though I like Tony Robbins, he's actually why I started out in my career. But like, I was like, oh yeah, like all those people need lots of help. But then I was thinking, I don't need help. But then I do. Yeah. Everyone does.
Yeah.
But it's like, like you have to regulate your emotions. There's just no way around it.
Absolutely. And like I said, even if you want to just use science and you want to capitalize it on other things, you need to regulate your emotions to be able to regulate your nervous system better. And if you want to get more results from your training, you want to be able to handle interpersonal and business relationships and workloads better, then you want a better regulated nervous system. Performance in your life comes from a regulated nervous system, and emotions will have an impact on that system. So regulate your emotions, learn to express them where you need to, and that's gonna have a profound improvement on your nervous system function, which is going to improve all of the other endeavors that you want in your life. So I definitely don't perceive it as like a weakness or a brokenness or anything like this. I view it as very important.
I think it's a fear though, right? Like of expressing your emotions. Like for example, for me, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've cried in front of a man. You know, so it's like the fear of like, oh, can he hold the safe space, or is he going to just judge me right away? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a really big one, and this is something that I'm really, really exploring now, because I've always had this, like I said, prior to my kind of journey into more identity, masculinity, and things like this, and self-identity and expression rather, in the past few years, I would tar most men with the same brush. So I would assume that there wasn't that safety for me, and now it's very much the opposite. I'm connecting more and more with men that either trust me to hold that space for them, or that we can share in that space. And that's really, really powerful. It's like, I literally, not last week, the week before, I had a meditation with my mentor, a group meditation. And there was a sentence in there. I thought I was absolutely fine going on. I'm very good nowadays at expressing my emotions and connecting to them and everything else. And I had a moment of release on, we were like 15 minutes into a breathwork thing. And I don't remember the exact sentence even, but it was something along the lines of, I give you permission to be a man, and no masks are needed in this space. Something simple around those lines. And I dropped a mask I didn't know I even had on at the time. And that was it. I'm like on a Zoom call with like 20 other guys in a group meditation. And I'm just like, that's me gone, broken. And there was this immediate moment where I'm like, oh, need to hide this. Like, what's the tips? Like, look up, pinch something. What do I need to do to stop this reaction from happening? And then I was like, no. Like, those exact words are what gave me enough safety to be able to express this. And I let it happen. And it was a really, really big moment for me as well, because it was like a layer that I didn't know I still had left. And that was great. And it's not like I cried for hours. It was like, whatever it was, a minute or two, there was some emotional release. And then I was like, wow, like, I obviously still, even in this scenario, even in a space where I'm with like-minded men that are doing this introspective work, that are trying to just like connect to themselves and whatever else and to each other, that even then, just in case, my body had still put on a layer. Just, you never know. And it's like, then dropping that was like, wow, it was a really, really big moment. But yeah, for years I would have felt very, very insecure and unsafe to express myself, especially to men. To women has always been a little bit easier, but even then there's this thing of like, oh, will she think I'm less of a man if I do show vulnerability? And yeah, nowadays I don't have any worries around any of those things, because I can embody it so much more. I can express myself in every range of my emotion. So,
and the woman will, like your partner will think more of you, and she'll feel more connected to you as a result of you expressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's like, it's a subconscious permission or exchange. It's like, I'm sharing all of me with you. Like, there's nothing left. I like, and what that shows, like, in your character, is that's a confirmation that you don't hide things either. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Like that, and that's like, that's also gives safety to a big wound that people can have around trust. You know, I can't say it's been in my personal experience, but I've definitely had friends who, like, their partner wants to check their phone every now and again, or like when they're going out with the boys wants to like know when and where, or like, and not even in a like crazy obsessive way, but just in a like, oh, I just need to feel a bit safe here. I just need to feel a bit safe here. I guarantee you, if you express yourself fully and unconditionally to that person, there's the trust will be there, because you're like, I'm not holding anything back. I'm not hiding anything from you. And also, that's how I want to live in my relationships. When I am in a relationship with someone, especially with my partner, obviously. Like, that's how I want to portray myself, because it makes it very clear for both of us. I'm unapologetically me. I am also my first priority. You be unapologetically you. Also be your first priority. Now we have choice, because we're both expressing, we're both independent, and now we can choose to be in each other's presence. We can choose to share. And once you bring choice in, things are really, like, things improve. So yeah, I think it does give more of a sense of safety and trust to a woman if you are able to express.
And telling the truth, right? Like, just having that be the baseline. It's like, I'm going to tell the truth no matter what.
Yeah, this is huge, and this is where I have a lot of conversations around, like, communication and boundaries with people as well, because, like, yeah, telling the truth is like a really good baseline to have. And, like, me and my partner even have this thing. We have a green card system, which is telling the truth sometimes isn't nice. Or sometimes you just don't know how to articulate or communicate the thing that you want to, but you also don't want to hide anything. So we have this green card rule, which is we'll be in the middle of a conversation, sometimes an argument, maybe a conflict, could just be normal day-to-day things. And one of us will have to go, I need a green card, right, a free pass, because I need to say something to you, but I don't know the best way to say or articulate or communicate it. And this is like, gives the other person a moment to go, how am I feeling to, like, receive? And also to tone down reactivity, to be like, you're already preparing me that I might not like what I'm going to hear, but that it's not going to be literal. Then you say the thing, they're like, yep, okay, green card, off you go. Then they say the thing. And, like, in my household, that even allows us to have a conversation around, okay, I think I know what you're saying. Did you mean this? Oh, that sounds better than what I said. Maybe this? Oh, okay, yeah. And you get to the bottom of, like, this is what you meant. Okay, cool. And just diffusing something before it even becomes a conflict is huge. And yeah, it just comes from the fact that, like, I need to communicate with you. I need to be honest and tell you the truth. But I also know that if I just blurted this out, there's probably going to be reactivity to it. So we'll buffer that. And that's a really powerful thing we do. And that's something that I've helped guys that I work with their relationships. It's like, sometimes they're like, sometimes I just react, or I just do this, or I just do that, or I don't know what to say, so I walk away. Like, have you tried saying that you don't know what to say, or that you don't know how to communicate your feelings? Have you tried asking for a free pass and said, you're not going to like how this sounds, but I don't mean it how it sounds. Can I say it? Are you open to this? And then you say, oh my God, that's so much better received than just, like, whatever you would have blurted in the first place.
Yeah, it's like prefacing the truth.
Right?
Like, you prepare them for
Yeah, sometimes that needs to happen, because, like, we don't always want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather hear the truth and not like it than hear a lie.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line, right? Like, that's really pretty much it. Like, it's just a fear again. It's like a fear. Like, oh, how are they going to receive it? Like, it's going to shatter their world. Like, all this stuff's playing in your mind. Yeah,
it's fear, it's safety.
Yeah.
While we were going through this kind of healing journey, me and my partner have had 2 conversations, neither of them recent now, but over the past 6 months, we've had conversations around if a breakup is in our future. How do you feel about that? Like, because I've had thoughts around it, and then she had thoughts around it. We're like, that's very interesting. They weren't, like, grounded enough thoughts to be like, this is the decision I want to make. But it was like, oh, this is weird. I haven't thought of, like, since we've been together, I haven't really, other than, like, in the midst of an argument, haven't thought about this. But they came in at a different point for each of us in the recent 6 months. But then, because we were able to communicate that, we were able to, like, talk about options and, like, work it through and be like, okay, is that what we want? Or is that just to, like, if things don't go in this direction, it'll go in that direction? Or if, so we had those moments, and actually those were great. Can you imagine sitting on those thoughts and not telling? That's going to start to, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to play it over and over and over again. It's going to become a very strong, prominent thought. And then for your partner, it comes out of nowhere. We should break up. I've been thinking about it for months.
That's what happened to me.
It's like, fuck, see?
Literally that. And it was like the most surprising thing to her, because I was just not expressing myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's difficult because your intention wasn't to hurt that person.
No, absolutely not.
And you've been sitting on the thought so present for such a long period of time that by the time you reach that decision, you're like, I'm so certain. We can't navigate out of this. This isn't a conversation. This is just like, I need to tell you these facts now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the outcome would have been different had you have communicated it earlier, but it definitely would have been differently received.
Absolutely. And that's like, again, going back to the power of expression, right? Like, it's, for me, I think for me, like, it comes back to my family and how I was raised. Like, no one expresses themselves.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of households like that throughout the world. Like,
I think there are.
It's not just, they don't express their emotions, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really, really common. So I think generationally, there's a lot of things that we are then forced to change in ourselves, breaking away from our conditioning, you know, and then move through that. And it's something that me and my partner are talking about at the moment. Like, we're in the stages where we are wanting children. We're not in the stage where we're going to start that process yet, but we know it's in our near future, perhaps a year away, you know. But we're having a lot of conversations around like the conditioning that we experience through our families and the like transgenerational trauma that we've had to fucking heal through stops with us. Like, I'm not putting that on my kids as well. So we're doing all the work on us. We're even going back and doing the work on our family. We're not handling any of their bullshit anymore. Like, so we're talking to people about like, you've got to change, you've got to grow. You can't just be like, this is just my normal. Even though you've been like this for 50 something years or whatever else, it's like, we're not taking it. We're not accepting it anymore because you can be so much better. You can be so much happier. And we're like, we don't want to bring kids into this world if we're just perpetuating this same cycle. So we're which is going to be a lot of hard work. Working on ourselves is fine, but working on your family and getting your family to change is...
But can you get them to change though?
I think you can get them to change a little bit. I think at the very least you can get them to acknowledge. I am brutal as well, so I will leverage my children. Like, I will be like, if you don't see them. You want to be an involved grandparent? Here are two things you need. Physical and mental health. Like, you work on yourself physically, because I'm not having you die young and have that confusion for my kids, right? I'm not having that. I'm not taking away their grandparents before they're emotionally intelligent enough to process grief. So if they're all unhealthy and or overweight or unfit or whatever else, it's like, do some work on that. Show me that you're dedicated and that you can be an active grandparent. And the other side is like, I don't want your BS. If you've got like griefs and traumas and limiting beliefs and things like that, you don't have to be perfect, but I need to see that you're working on yourself. Because this is the environment that I want my kids growing up in, that they see that what they see from humans is that we work on ourselves, we are seeking improvement all the time, we are communicative and expressive. I want these to be the things that they grow up seeing and acknowledging, so that that's almost their default expression, is like authentic. And I can't guarantee any of this, obviously, I cannot. This is all a big theoretical thing, but I want to put that effort in as much as I can, and at the very least I'm going to make sure it stops with me. I'm doing all my healing, and I'm expressing myself fully, and I'm trying to influence others to do the same. So we'll see. But
can you imagine the world we'd live in if everyone had that same philosophy and outlook on life?
Dude, I can't. That's the sad thing. I can't. I think it's the minority. I think you're getting more and more and more people coming into this now and being prepared to express themselves. And, you know, I mean, we're living in Bali, so I bump into a large majority of people that are in that. But I think there's hubs of this type of culture in various places in the world. But then I think everybody else is still doing these social norms. But I can't imagine what the world would be like if that was the majority. That'd be crazy. It'd be like everybody picking each other up instead of like competing and putting each other down or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, so we've covered a lot. I want to wrap it up with one last question.
Okay.
Which is something I ask everyone, and I'm super fascinated by the answers everyone gives. So, what is the meaning of life for Ash?
Okay. This has changed for me recently. So I definitely believe in authentic, unapologetic expression of self, like connecting to who I am and who I want to be and expressing that fully to everybody I connect with. I think that is kind of like the foundation of life, of the human experience that we get to have. I think you get to experience it fully if you are in that. And I'm going to go a bit soft here as well now and say that for me, it's love. It's giving and experiencing, sharing in, like, as much love as possible throughout this journey of human existence and experience. And it's the times and the things in which I feel most fulfilled is when I can authentically, without conditions, love someone, or authentically and unconditionally receive love from someone or something. You know, my partner, my parents, my dogs. So for me, it's cultivating that in your life. The more you can cultivate those feelings of giving and of receiving life, I believe that's like the purpose, that's the experience. Yeah, that's my answer.
Awesome, love it. So Ash Parkhouse, where can we find out more about you?
You can check me out on my Instagram, which is about the only thing I'm really present on nowadays, which is Ash_Parkhouse. And that's it. Or come to Bali. You'll find me around Nirvana, you know, or just, yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't have a website. My email is my personal email at the moment. I'm pretty low visibility, I suppose. Like yeah. But I am available. I'm always here for these types of chats. I'm always here for coaching or mentoring.
Awesome.
I just don't scream about it loads.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was a really good chat. I appreciate it.
Thanks man. It was a really good chat.
On.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.